In this video, I'm going to take you through the 4 key main areas that I think could be really important ahead of your ACCA SBL Strategic Business Leader exam. My name is James, and as you can see above me, I have my exclusive notes I'm going to take you through in this video. If you'd like access to them, just click the link in the description of this video and you can download them from there. You'll also find some links down there to Astranti, who I'm affiliated with. And as always, for pure transparency on the channel, if you were to buy any of their mocks or packages, I would have a small commission as a result from it, which all goes into supporting the channel, which is ever a massive thank you to everyone who subscribes, likes the videos. It means so much, and thank you so much. You can also take advantage of their free pre-scene pack on top of it. You can even get your money back if you don't think it was actually worthwhile. So the ball's completely in your court, and let's get straight into the video, because the first area that you need to get down for your notes, when I went through this, because my life is just so entertaining, I go through ACCA notes for the fun of it. We have on here, tip number 1, the information systems, or in other words, IT systems on there. Because as you can see where my mouse is up above me, I read through it. And just read this back to yourself now. It goes, information systems. AT's internal information systems are adequate for its purposes. And they're going, adequate. We're given a football team which has tens of thousands of fans and is generating millions of dollars in revenue. And you go, the internal information systems are adequate. So that was the first, and I'm going to coin the phrase here on red flag for it. But then as you read on further on, it talks about the marketing and IT director believes that the maintenance of the data is currently in accordance with data protection legislation in Kyland on there. So automatically you're thinking to yourself, they believe that it actually is. Hang on a second, surely a football club in this case, who are 8th in the top league on here, is not quite sure about its internal information systems. And the other point to link to this is actually on there about the data and the information that the company holds. So of the actual information you could refer to, again, if it was to be tested, I have not got a crystal ball, but you've got contact information, financial details, names. But the other key thing was in terms of the actual structure around that marketing and IT director. Now this is where it gets even more interesting as to, you've got to read between the lines, and who knows on this, but you can see there that part of the board structure, we have a marketing and IT director, but as you can see where my mouse is, we've got the marketing and digital media and also oversight of the IT manager and her staff. So what we're saying there is, in layman's terms, is the marketing and IT director and marketing and digital media is what they do, and they also have an oversight of an IT manager and her staff. So we're not given who her is the IT manager. We don't know how many staff they have. And you just think, could they throw in a curveball on there to say, if they were to have a data breach, I'm thinking of things that are very topical in the world that we live in, there could be fines, massive repercussions on there, a potential lawsuits, who knows the sort of provisions that we may have to discuss on it on there. But that was my first one. For the IT and information systems could also be linked into ethics, which is also one of the other tips, which I'm going to come on to later. So make sure you stay to the end. Now, number two, got to get this down. Athletic Trans Central's actual stadium itself. And never would I have thought I'd be talking about a stadium being so important, but there are so many details, and they're trying to link this actual case study to real life and what's been going on in the world. Well, how this links into it, again, it's not based on an actual football club, it's on Athletic Trans Central, but it mirrors what has happened at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club on there, where they have just had a brand new stadium developed. They're a North London club. I don't support them. It's just an example if you want to go away and research it. But the key thing for the stadium on here is the position on the league over the last 3 years, as you can see on the table, has been steadily dropping. They're still in the top 8, which is very good, in terms of the actual revenue generation, which we can touch on in a moment. But look at the capacity comparing Athletic Transcentral up to Maritime, 1922 Lurvin on there. You've got, and I've worked it out, you've got 1.92 times the capacity, which again is another income generating mechanism for the football club itself. And they also touch on it later on in terms of, right, we've clearly got a stadium that has capacity on there, and I believe it was at 96.5% on there. So you can see on the non-financial key performance indicators and my notes. So large match attendance has a percentage of stadium capacity, 96.5% for the men's, and it's on the page 9 further down. But the key bit here is the clubs, okay? The clubs with the 3 top teams in Division 1 in the KFL League in the 2002 and 2003 season have all moved to new stadiums in the last 8 years, which in our case for AT, they actually haven't. So are they behind the curve in terms of different revenue generation techniques for them on there? So that's one thing in terms of income capacity, actual physical capacity to get the number of fans in there. And then you're thinking to yourself, have they given us anything in terms of the potential expansion? And look at here on the actual notes that we're provided with. Masses of amounts on here, and it can link into other theories like Ansoff that it could touch on. And it's the potential of income as to what happened at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is that just in this case, with Athletic Transcentral, is that they have 30 hospitality boxes for corporate clients. But you can see on here where my mouse is, currently not sufficient on there for hosting other sporting events and concerts. This is where they're currently filling the stadium for the men's games at 96.5%, so nearly at full capacity on there. But there are other teams, you can see up at the top, so 3 other teams in Division 1 that are based within 40 kilometres. So potentially you could be saying, well, if fans can't get to a game, which they want to see for Athletic Transcentral, who knows? They might not be loyal and go to someone else on there. The club's been around for a number of years. They're well structured on there as to they've got a loyal fan base. They've always been in the top league for the previous few years. And the other thing as well, you're thinking, these are the 2 options that I'm thinking they could either throw up. They've got one option of keep the current stadium and expand it on there to increase the capacity, a lot like, say, Liverpool Football Club have done, Manchester United have done. Or, this is where I think the or option comes to it, AT owns the land that the stadium is built on and the land adjacent to the stadium. The adjacent land is leased to Frenia's City Council. So in other words, it sounds like they've got land next to it, and they've got all the infrastructure they've touched on here about trains on there and buses, and they even say they've got a small stadium shop which only sells kits. Where you think, if you go to a massive football stadium, they're going to sell you everything from merchandise to accessories to kits. So that's another revenue stream they could be looking at. So that's the other option on there for number 2, is demolish the current stadium, which Tottenham Hotspur did for their White Hart Lane, and then that's when they moved to their new London stadium on there, which they had to play at Wembley for a year. Now, if you're not into football, you're not going to get all these sort of bits on it, but they took the land that they had and made a state-of-the-art stadium, and it's now regarded as one of the best in the world. Maybe not if you're an Arsenal fan on there. But that's number 2. Tip number 2 to get down for the actual stadium itself. Next, number 3. And I can't believe this is actually in an ACCA exam, but we're going to do it, is financial fair play regulations. Why have I got this down on here as being just fundamental? Well, one of the reasons is they've put it down on here because it links into a football example, but I just said to myself, why? Why have they given us an example here over a 6-year period? This is the thing. This is the thing you've got to be getting in your notes. They've given us a 6-year example on there to work out when they were in breach of financial fair play. So you can see in year 6, they had total relevant earnings of minus $7 million, which means they were in breach of it. They could have fines, sanctions, they could be losing points on there. And I've put very key to remember all of these different types of penalties. So prize money, fines, that is a really key point there. Why is this important? Well, if you go down to the bottom on here, and they've given us some sort of selected summary parts, notice how they've given us 3 years, and they gave us an example of 6. And look, you can see, yes, brilliant, it's still in positive, of positive 20, of relevant earnings on there. And I've given you some details how it's calculated. But on the unseen information, on your exam day, it could well be that they could throw in that you actually have to maybe do some small calculations. So just be aware of it on there. You've actually got the calculations that could fall into it. I've got down here in my notes. And the other key aspect for it is they give us a few different areas for financial fair play. So you've got the actual risks and threats on there, financial fair play, and this is the key bit on here for relevant income and relevant expenses. Now this is where it's really key as to a note, which when I read it through, I went, that's super important. It's relevant income on here, and this is where you get clubs like Chelsea have been doing it, and Man City, is where when they bring in talent into their football club and they go through an academy, they register as 0 on the balance sheet. I'm starting to sound like Simon Jordan on there, but Simon, if you are listening, you are literally one of my heroes. But coming back onto it, can you see there, profit on sale of players? Now, if you've got lots of academy players who are on your balance sheet for 0 on there, this is where you can make a whopping great big income and get your way around financial fair play. But the key thing for your notes on here is, up at the top here, 5 professional clubs have their own academies, and you can see on my points there, key point, 80 from what we're told, does not have an academy. So you've got 5 out of 18 teams in the top league actually having an academy where they're going to grow their own players and then sell them on at a profit. But that is where 80 currently don't have that on there. So definitely something to look at, those income and revenue expenses. Have a look at what financial fair play is in the real world, and then look into it from a sort of balance sheet, profit and loss, relevant expenses, relevant income point of view. Now, last but not least, point number 4 are ethics. Ethics is going to be in this examination, but where are we given little hints as to where it could fall into it? Well, on page 8, you can see on here, key bit for you to note down, is each function is responsible for recruiting and appraising its own staff, with, for example, first team players being appraised by the team manager. And you just think to yourself, how? How can that happen, that the players are being actually responsible and recruited and appraised by their manager? Surely the finance director has to be there as well. And I'm thinking the ethical issues and potential audit risks on there, player salaries, familiarity, that if you're really chummy with the person who's above you, they'll give you a more favourable outcome. And also there's no information on a remuneration committee as well. We're told there's an audit committee, but no details on a remuneration committee for the board of directors. So are the internal controls actually adequate on there? And finally, for a sort of ethical sort of area, which I just went, hang on a second. Well, it was the non-executive directors. First of all, we've only got 2 of them on there, which it's not a UK company, so it doesn't have to be half and half. But for the information that we're actually provided on the 2 non-executive directors, in terms of it, we're told on here the board runs 1 committee, has an audit committee staffed by 2 of the non-executive directors, but we're not told what's their experience, what's their sort of background, are there any familiarity threats, what's their relevant experience. All these sort of matters rolled into my mind to say there are so many risks associated with that, and that is where you can go back up to the key bit here on page 6, risks and threats. And this is where I'm not a betting man, but they would not put that level of risks in there, like illegal streaming, damage to the club brand. Please expect in your ACCA SBL exam on the exam day things to come up that are not working correctly and just not going to be playing by ball. They want to give you things to get you thinking what you would do in the real world on there. So everything from security risks, health and safety risks. What if there's an accident at one of the football grounds? What if they were to breach financial fair play regulations? The final thing before we just close on here is, if you go down to the actual, we touched on it earlier, the total revenue for Athletic Trans Central, it's been going up year on year. It's because the men's team, they are so reliant on the men's team staying in Division 1. That's what's propping it up. But the actual position of the men's team has gone down. They've gone from 5th to 6th to 8th. And they've got so many other areas like retail and sponsorship where they've got so much opportunity for greater revenue streams. I'm just thinking, what if they were to get a fine or a points deduction which meant they were going to get relegated, and it would impact on their actual profitability? And last but not least, their earnings before interest and tax on there. As you can see, depreciation and amortization is dropping as well. So that there is financial pressure on this football club. And if the men's team were to get relegated, or if there were to be any issues, that is going to be a massive implication for them. But, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our nice 4 key tips for you to take away. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Make sure you give it a massive like and subscribe for more. And I've left you a couple of videos up at the top that takes you through these notes, which, as I said, you can download. Click the link in the description and they're all yours. But best of luck with your SBL exam, and leave me a comment how you get on. All the best. Cheers.